Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team podcast. I am your host, Stephen Negishi. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of our live stream. With me, as always, is my co host from the Awful Announcing Associate Editor, Ken Fang. Ken, good evening. How are you tonight?
Good, Stephen. How are you? Good to be on with you. It's very hot and humid where I am. Believe it or not, the we went from a cold spring to a very hot summer right away here in Rhode Island. So humidity
Okay.
is quite warm. So forgive me if you see me sweating. But anyway, that's where we are at this point.
Yeah,
Good to be on with you, and good to see you. And we have a lot of things to discuss.
absolutely. Here in Kansas City, where I am, it is. Uh, we've been getting a lot of rain on and off. We've had some tornadoes and um, crazy stuff happening weather-wise, but it's very nice and sunny today, and we certainly have a lot to talk about. So let's get on with it, Ken. Obviously, the big news that we've even touched on this last week on our show. It is official.
Well, it's
TNT.
not quite official yet. It's
Well,
not quite official yet, but it seems to be getting there.
okay. It is that TNT looks like it is losing the rights to NBA broadcast after next season, and it looks as though NBA will go with NBC, ESPN, and so forth. So it's probably almost a foregone conclusion that next season is going to be the last time you will ever see EJ Ernie Johnson, Shaq, Kenny the Jet Smith, and Sir Charles. So it is a sad day because of the possibility of those four men. An incredible chemistry that spanned 2 decades of NBA broadcasting. They were, certainly a much see TV. The antics of Sir Charles and Shaq and so forth, and it's been a lot of fun watching those 4 guys interact on a regular basis during NBA seasons, and I think it will be something that a lot of fans they should enjoy while they can and embrace what could be a massive change in the NBA broadcasting moving forward. Ken.
Yeah, absolutely, Steven. So what's going to happen is, it reported by Sports Business Journal today that that the NBA is formalizing agreements with ESPN, and that ESPN was a foregone conclusion. NBC, which is apparently taking TNT's package away, and Amazon, which will have looking like rights to the in-season tournament and the play-in tournament, and maybe one of the conference finals, where ESPN will have the main package, continue to have that along with ABC broadcasting the finals every year, and then NBC having the conference finals every other year with Amazon. They plan on doing what's called Basketball Night in America, similar to what they do with Football Night in America with the NFL. If this happens, of course, there's a talk that the NBA on NBC theme known as Round Ball Rock, authored by John Tesh, will return. And one of the things that we know that has been reported and pretty much confirmed is that a new version of Round Ball Rock will be recorded for next season. Now, what's holding this up is that the fact that Warner Brother Discovery, the parent company of TNT, claims it has matching rights to NBC. And it all, of course, the lawyers are going to get involved on this, Stephen. We'll see what happens, but it's looking right now that TNT is out. And they, of course, Charles Barkley has been joking about this, saying the other day, saying that he's going to be going on LinkedIn, saying that this is the last time that they'll be together. Last night during the Sports Emmys, it was kind of ironic to see some of the people who were and programs that were awarded excuse me, that were awarded the sports Emmys last night, including Greg Olson, and we'll talk about that later. Greg Olson, who is going to be set aside for Tom Brady as he was given the award for outstanding sports analyst. Inside the NBA won for limited daily sports studio show limited run for its playoffs, and of course they win that seemingly every year. Charles Barkley won for event analyst in the studio, and Ernie Johnson won for studio host. The interesting thing is that Ernie was very emotional yesterday and talking about and using the word grateful, how much he was grateful to be hosting and had the opportunity to work with Charles, and of course also with the baseball studio, which he does as well. But it's seemingly interesting, Stephen, that that inside the NBA, Ernie Johnson and Charles Barkley won in a year in which are looking like more and more likely that TNT is going to be in its lame duck year next season in the 24-25 season. And Charles talked about in an interview with Sirius XM Radio today that was also put on the site that I work for, Awful Announcing, that he is very sad that seeing like something like 200 people will be losing their jobs at TNT Sports if this indeed comes to fruition. So an official announcement has not been made as of yet. We do expect it coming up in the next couple of weeks or so. But even people like Bill Simmons, who is a charlatan, by the way, who I really don't think that he has much. I consider him not to be, even though he claims to be from Boston, he lives out in Los Angeles all this time. He's not really a Boston sports guy. But anyway, he's someone I don't respect, and I have little respect for, despite his alleged expertise in the NBA. He has said that pretty much the NBC has won the rights to the NBA, and he is connected very well into the NBA as well. So people who I do respect, like John Oran has said, who reports for Puck, the sports media writer, has also said this as well. So I'm going to pretty much go with what I hear, and it looking like very much more and more likely that not next season, but the following season, the 25-26 season, we will be seeing NBC and Amazon as new partners in the National Basketball Association, Stephen.
Yes. TNT basically will no longer broadcast the NBA games, and there was a report that they will get to broadcast the first round of the college football game playoffs, starting this year as if it is some sort of a consolation prize of sorts. But it really doesn't do anything, I think, in the minds of people. This is somewhat, I know you tweeted out earlier today, this is somewhat akin to, CBS losing the NFL broadcasting rights back in after '93, and it went straight to Fox. And I believe CBS ended up getting back the NFL broadcast rights again in '98, which obviously they do a lot of the AFC games primarily for us. So the damage was probably somewhat minimal, but TNT, we know that they carry NCAA basketball. They also have the NHL package during the hockey season,
and Major League Baseball on TBS too. I will say this. Right.
Yeah,
I will say this, Stephen. I think that.
I think the branding could be hurt a little bit, TNT, because I forgot to mention AEW wrestling too. Obviously that certainly, nothing against the wrestling, of course, but the wrestling and maybe the sports that I just mentioned probably does not move the needle in the same way, because the chemistry that EJ, Shaq, Kenny, and Sir Charles had on set is unrivaled. And that it would be hard to replicate, whether it's whether it's with the NBC or even much less with the other sports that the TNT currently has right now.
Yeah, and also too, Stephen, I will mention that there was a grand miscalculation by the head of Warner Brothers Discovery, David Zaslav. Of course, he mentioned, and we talked about this before, a couple of years ago, he said, well, TNT doesn't really need the NBA. Those type of comments really rankled Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA. The thing about sports broadcasting is the relationships that you have. And David Zaslav didn't have much of a relationship with the NBA, and he also got rid of a lot of people at when they were called Turner Sports, and rebranded a few times since, and now TNT Sports. But
right,
a lot of the people who were at Turner Sports over the last 20 years, and garnered great relationships with the NBA, were let go, and they went to other networks. And one of them went to NBC, and that was Mark Lazarus. He has been leading NBC Sports for quite some time now, but he's been wanting to get back with the NBA. He's been wanting to get NBA into the NBC into the NBA, and bring back that those great feelings that everybody had when NBC used to broadcast the NBA back in the 1990s and with the Michael Jordan era. But I will say this, Stephen. When you have an executive, as you say there, David Zaslav blew it, and he's
the worst person in media.
Yeah, he's cut a lot of jobs. He's refused to release a lot of movies.
Because of a tax write-off, I guess.
Yes, for instance, the Batgirl movie, which was completed and edited, and he said will never see the light of day. He's pretty much put that under lock and key. He wrote it off as a loss for tax purposes. Now he's going to have to learn, when he said that maybe TNT doesn't need the NBA. Well, he's going to learn about that now. If it does indeed come to fruition, that TNT is going to be in a lame duck year in 2025, 26, Stephen, 24, 25. It's going to be a really depressing year in the halls in Atlanta over at TNT Sports, because that's a proud sports division. It's while it may have come and gone with the NFL, we used to have one of the Sunday night football packages back in the 1990s. It also had other sports as well, like golf, and it's had tennis. But the main things that have been had, it was always the NBA. You knew the NBA was going to be at TNT. It's been with Turner Sports going back to 1984, 85. Right. It's been a great tradition. The marketing that Turner has had and the partnership it's had with the NBA has been one of the most solid I've seen in this run of sports. But as we all know, things do come to an end. Things happen. Partnerships end. And David Zaslav coming in when he had this merger with Discovery and Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers, TNT has been part of Warner Brothers for quite some time, going back to the late 2000s. It's the one constant they had were these great executives who nurtured the NBA and had this great relationship. But then when David Zaslav came in, he cut a lot of those people away, and they didn't have that relationship. And now he's going to pay the price if all the reports that we have and have heard are going to come true, Stephen. I like to think that, and I hate to say this, but I think they are. It's going to be dark days over at Warner Brothers Discovery, because one of the things that sports helps to do is to keep an audience, and also gets license fees from the cable companies. Now it's just going to be easier for a lot of these pay cable companies like Comcast and Spectrum, and even Google, which owns YouTube TV, to say, hey, look, you don't have the NBA anymore. You don't have the sports that we want. That's programming. You can't charge as much for us, so there's no reason for us to keep you. So unless it gets something like UFC, Stephen, or something like the World Cup, a property that is compelling, and to keep those pay cable companies around, and to keep them from dropping them, it's going to be a real struggle for TNT and Warner Brothers Discovery to maintain the money and the affiliate fees they get from the cable company, Stephen.
Yeah, it will be interesting what TNT does, and will this put an end to David Zaslav's career? His reputation already has been tarred based on what you've mentioned. So there is nothing that will redeem him. I think at this point, Warner Brothers might have to start thinking about replacing Zaslav if the the fallout will become significant, and that maybe TNT will pursue some other sports. Maybe here in the U.S. that would be broadcast like who knows, maybe Serie A soccer. I know that CBS Sports is that they're contracted with CBS Sports is almost coming to an end. Maybe Germany's Bundesliga could be broadcasted. Maybe they might go in that direction.
Well, ESPN just recently kept that, so that's
okay. Well, then that's probably not it.
I mean,
that's probably more likely Serie A or something like that, because I know, TNT, HBO Max, they do a lot of U.S. Soccer broadcasts, so maybe they might foray into that as well, or maybe they might try and steal the MLS contract from Apple TV when Apple decides to it's not worth the the money that they're getting from, especially if Lionel Messi ends up retiring or leaving MLS altogether, whichever comes first. So we'll see.
Yeah, and right now there's a lot of things that TNT has to put into consideration here, especially if they lose the NBA.
They don't even have that many original shows that they used to have anyway, too.
No, they cut those. David Zaslav cut a lot of that original programming that they had as tax write-offs, Steven. So they're running a lot of repeats. They're running a lot of they do these Star Wars marathons as a
movies, TV, drama reruns. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they have to think, and the only, like you said, the only original programming they really have is sports, and that keeps people around. I mean, they used to have that great promotion, 40 days, 40 games, and 40 nights, the playoff games, the NBA playoff games that they used to run when they had the main cable contract, Steve, with the NBA. So, there's a lot of things they have to consider. I mean, English Premier League comes up maybe in 28 because NBC has that. But the World Cup is also coming up, but that's only every 2 years, Stephen. So they gotta, if they want to have some type of major sports programming, and they've got to figure something out. They really do, because if they don't, then like I said, the cable companies have really no incentive to keep them around.
Yeah, especially in this day and age where media rights are skyrocketing, and people losing their jobs, etc. New media versus traditional media. As long as people like David Zaslav still remain firmly entrenched, it's not going to be a great place for people to be working in media moving forward. So I'll be very, very curious to see what the next move is for TNT, because I think TNT's relevance might be hanging on its balance. So we're definitely curious to see what the final season of NBA on TNT will look like, and then the NBA under NBC's leadership, how it will look, with the Sunday night, basketball, akin to football night in America, basketball night in America. It's obviously completely different. I'll be very, very curious to see how Sunday night basketball will be, received by the fans, because it comes after football. So there's not much time between the end of the regular season, or actually end of football season, and then the playoffs. I'm sure obviously NBC will get one playoff game, and on a rotational basis they'll get a Super Bowl. So after Super Bowl, when it's done, that's when the Sunday night basketball takes place, and there's only less than 2 months left to do the games.
They'll have a package on Peacock, Steven, a weekly package likely, maybe a few games, and also maybe some games on USA Network, because they're going to be losing WWE Raw on Monday nights, so expect maybe weekly games on USA Network, and then NBC it'll give them 2 broadcast windows a week. That'll help out that'll increase the exposure from NBA from TNT to NBC, increase that exposure and the audience. And two, I would think because they have Mike Tirico and Noah Eagle, the son of Ian Eagle, I would expect those two gentlemen to be calling games. I mean, Noah Eagle has been calling games for the Los Angeles Clippers, and also he just started picking up games that for the New Jersey Nets on Yes Network when his father wasn't calling those games. So I would expect to see Noah Eagle and Mike Tirico. Tirico, of course, who used to call games on ESPN on a regular basis there. So I would expect those two gentlemen to be calling games for NBC when they come over. And of course, NBC can tap into its the people who have been calling games on their regional sports channels in Chicago and in the Bay Area and California to call games for them as well. So I would probably, NBC doesn't have if people who think they don't have people, experienced people to call the games, they do. So, and I think NBC has had this plan in place and getting ready. And that's why they hired Noah Eagle in the first place, when he first started to call the Big Ten last season. So with the NBA in mind. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We've got we still have some time, and, stranger things have happened. Maybe TNT actually does pull this out. We'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next topic. The NFL continues to be in the news for the good, the bad, and even the ugly. We'll get to those things in a moment, but we're going to start off with the recent news that came out. The globalization of the NFL. We've touched on it on our show. The reports came out this week that the NFL's globalization effort will likely to reach its new home, or new country, I should say. It is Australia, which in a way it does make sense because we've had some Australian players start to make inroads to the NFL via college. Jordan Mailata, probably the biggest the success story coming from Australia, as a undrafted, unsigned free agent, I believe. And he has transformed himself into one of the best tackles in all of football. Signed a big contract, I believe, this offseason. And then we are learning more and more about the Aussie punters here in college and in the NFL because of their experiences playing Aussie-style football. So those experiences and their emergence certainly makes Australia a very good destination. They have the infrastructure to, host these types of games. But at some point, these games, Roger Goodell spoke today about the 18-game scheduling. And then, we touched on this on our recent show as well. It seems as though he is favoring the idea of only 2 preseason games and 18-game regular season with 2 buys. I think all of this is based on the fact that recent announcement that the Netflix is going to start broadcasting the NFL games on Christmas Day, 25th. So, which is why, the NFL schedule that got released a week ago tonight has so many different weird, quirky schedules where, in my case, the Bears play week 15, 16, 17. Late in the season, they play 3 games in span of 10 days. That is absolutely bonkers to think that you can have that many games in such, short amount of time.
Yeah. It doesn't give you much.
It's right. The globalization and the streaming options, those things are maybe not necessarily directly connected, Ken, but in my opinion, in order to expand, you got to have another source of games overseas, and then also, align yourself with another streaming service to, make more money, which obviously I think the fans have to be asking themselves, when is it enough? And will this impact the popularity of NFL? Not necessarily a sharp decline, but the fans who get pissed off about having to pay so many streaming services and cable services just to watch the NFL games moving forward, starting this year, and that maybe this is going to directly force the fans to make a decision moving forward.
Well, first let's talk about Australia. As you mentioned, when they get to 18 games, Stephen, every team is going to have that will mark every team getting an international game,
right?
And it'll add extra revenue to the league's coffers. There was talk a long time ago that the NFL wanted to play a preseason game in Australia. That never came to fruition. I think it was going to be around 2008, 2007. They just never get the logistics together. But now the fact is that there are plenty of places where they could play, like the Melbourne Cricket Ground, Sydney. They could play a whole range of places. But the NFL is very popular down there. As you saw the banner earlier, they air regularly on 7 Network in Australia. Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football air in the mornings over there. So Sunday Night Football airs on Monday morning, I believe it is, in Australia, because it's 16 hours ahead of time of the East Coast. And also Monday Night Football is aired too. ESPN also carries games down there as well. So it is quite a big fan base for the National Football League down under, and I would not be surprised to see a game there, a regular season game. The fact, however, though, I think it's almost a 23-hour flight to get there, Stephen. So you have to somehow have to figure out the buys for that. Maybe like they play, a Thursday night football game before that, giving them plenty of time to get there, and then get acclimated to Australian time, and then give them a bye coming back, because you can't have them play the week afterwards coming back. So
No.
They have to figure that out. But Australia is a place where it has a very good fan base for the National Football League. It is they do like American sports there quite a bit. They love their basketball down there. They of course have a very good rabid women's basketball league, the Australian Basketball League as well. And they also have a good fan base for baseball and softball too. So American sports are quite well liked in Australia, and the National Football League is hoping to tap into that fan base. When they're going to play that, I don't know. But as you mentioned, how much is too much? Right now, it's not there yet, because fans, as much as fans complain about getting up early, especially on the West Coast, having to watch a London game. And of course, those London games aren't as highly rated and viewed as the games in the afternoons or even Sunday nights. Still, there's a market for them, and the fans over there. And we're not going to have. I think we have 5 international games this coming up season. This season, 3 in London, 1 in Germany, and 1 in Brazil. That day is coming when eventually I think the NFL also wants to expand to China. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen as well. And Stephen, as you well know, there was a Japan Bowl in the 1990s when they in the late 80s and 90s when they played in the Tokyo Dome. Preseason games.
Those were preseason games.
Yeah, those are all preseason games. ESPN used to carry those. But I wouldn't be surprised to see down the line. And the NFL is already tapping into Europe. Asia is probably next. South America, of course, too, and of course, maybe expect some games in Canada. The NFL wants to experiment with games in Toronto and Vancouver. So, when they get to that 18-week schedule, and it's going to come, we know it's coming. It's as far away as 2030, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it coming in the next 3 to 4 seasons, Stephen. They open up the collective bargaining agreement with the NFL Players Association, open up and say, look, we're going to get 18 games. We'll give you an extra bye week. We'll get an extra play. We'll, instead of having a bye for the playoff for the top teams in each conference, we'll have 8 games in wild card weekend. and we'll figure out how to schedule them. The NFL is trying to do this, and there's always some type of new scheme that the NFL is trying to do. And right now, how much is too much, Steven? Right now, it's not enough. So fans want
the commissioner and the greedy owners for them. Yeah, it's not enough. Yes.
Yeah, it's not enough right now, and until they get there, and of course, and there's going to be an NFL stadium boom again coming up too, because if you saw the renderings of the new Nissan Stadium in Tennessee, and also, of course, there's talk about new stadiums coming up as well. The Chicago, your city is going to have a new stadium, and that's going to be a dome stadium because they, in addition to having the 8 games or 9 games there, they want to have a Final Four and concerts and World Cup soccer there, Stephen. And they want a mixed use facility. That's the whole new trend. We're going to be seeing that. So how much is too much, Stephen? Again, it's not enough right now. It's not enough. And fans, as long as fans have an appetite for it, they're going to continue to get this type of decisions by the National Football League. And until they tap it out, until that bubble bursts, it's going to continue.
All right. Well, speaking of hypocrisy about, player safety and all that nonsense that the NFL is spewing, certainly, the organization that has been in the news for quite some time this offseason for all the wrong reasons. That is the Kansas City Chiefs here in my hometown. I don't even know where the hell to start with when this all happened. I think maybe the Chiefs probably stemming all the way from the, Andy Reid's son, Brett Reid, getting arrested for DUI and then killing a very young teenage girl. Unfortunately, he barely completed a sentence and he was released earlier this year. And then the unfortunate news of a tragic shooting that killed a Tejano DJ woman here in Kansas City. Of course, the shooting is, as it's not the Chiefs' problem, Chiefs' organizational problem, but unfortunately, the incident happened during Chiefs, Super Bowl ceremony celebration, and that the negative attachment, unfortunately, is still very much there. Though again, it's not the Chiefs' entirely fault, nor Ken and I are downgrading the shooting or the gun violence in this country for those who are watching this. So I hope you will understand. And then the news of rookie wide receiver Rashid Rice getting arrested for crashing a car and then also attacking a photographer. That assault charges against the photographer has been dropped, apparently, although Dallas Police Department is still hasn't closed its case and they're still investigating that assault cases. And then on top of it, the Harrison Butker, their kicker, went to a local Catholic school and then made a commencement speech that everybody is up in arms. And basically, he told the women that they shouldn't go into society and enter workforce and just embrace motherhood and and then give birth and so forth, blah blah blah. Am I kind of like in a correct ballpark?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this is a speech that, and what's interesting, his mother is a renowned scientist, Stephen. So
right, went to Emory University, which is a terrific school down in Atlanta.
Butker, I don't know where these comments come from, and he's entitled to his opinion. That's fine.
Exactly. And we'll get to that in a moment about the the entitled to the opinion and then the having a diverse stuff and so forth. But go ahead. But go ahead. Sorry.
It's one thing to attack a lifestyle. It's one thing to attack LGBTQ the community. It's one thing to get personal, which he did, attacking women's lifestyles. And says, "Oh, you should not be going into the workforce, but you should embrace mother, and that's fine. You can. There are women who do, and that's okay. But to go out and try to impose your will on someone else in a speech like that, it's just hateful. It's really hateful, Stephen. And
exactly,
I'm kind of surprised where Andy Reid and also." And others on the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, at least didn't say, "Hey, look, we have women fans, including Taylor Swift too. You're talking the most famous female fan right now, and you're attacking her as well. So
Exactly.
Instead of saying, look, it's we know that Harrison has his opinion, but we also know that this is hurtful towards the women. We don't condone his speech. We don't condone his actions, but he remains if he wants to, continue to play here, he has to be respectful to women. He has to be respectful to the fans. And we just want to let you know that we don't condone what he said. Instead, Andy, go ahead and play that. Make it full screen, Stephen. Go ahead and play
I will.
that.
This is Andy Reid today after the OTA practice, and it was asked about the Butker's statement over the weekend.
With so many women just on staff here and in the building, his comments kind of touched on women in the workforce. What do you tell them if they come to you with a concern about players speaking ill of, women in general?
Yeah, that hasn't happened. I don't think he was speaking ill to women, but he has his opinions, and we all respect that. I let you guys in this room, and you have a lot of opinions that I don't like.
So shots fired by Andy Reid there, and NFL is a different locker room dynamic. I was listening to a local radio station here in Kansas City. They were talking about the locker room dynamics. NBA has become more and more global. Baseball has become global. Of course, soccer is very diverse in all over the world. And NFL, this gentleman, I forgot his name, but it says it's kind of like the NFL locker room basically is somewhat akin to what the current situation in this country looks like. It's kind of like an epitome of what our society is right now, and I kind of sense it that way. And I understand, Patrick Mahomes said that, as long as he does his job, it really doesn't concern him. Although he did say that some of the things he said, he doesn't agree with. And I hope that that happens to be the statement Butker made at a college commencement speech attacking women's lifestyles. So, but unfortunately, he never delved further into it, or I don't think the media members pushed to it. And what you heard there on Andy Reid, it's pretty much, I think somewhat epitomizes what the college coaches, NFL, both college and also NCAA football coaches have their mindset in regards to their viewpoints outside of football. That they live in a world that's completely shielded or cocooned, unfortunately. And so asking these men, to be honest, to have some sort of an empathy and also remorse, I think it's somewhat unfortunately misguided. And Roger Goodell's statement on Butker seems also somewhat epitomizes the machismo culture of football, as well as the the world of that they say an excuse is about having diversity, the importance of diversity, which and I put it out there, their idea or their version, whatever you want to call it, of embracing diversity honestly does not make sense at all. And I'll be very, very curious to know what the NFL and the backlash that they're going to get, given the how much they capitalized the popularity of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, the relationship all played out last year. Tony Romo played golf with Donald Trump last week while Trump was in town to attend the NRA, conventions, and Andy Reid's bluntness, certainly, probably stemming from his son, getting shit canned, after all the nepotism, and also being shielded for after what his son has committed, and then only to serve basically little to no time, and then already out on the streets now. It seems as though the football culture, at least the American football culture, I should say, is completely different, and the people, as you can see in the comments here, who are basically responding and coming into defense of both Butker and Andy Reid, it's very, very similar to the MAGA people who are aligning themselves to Trump. And then also here's the comment from Mina Kimes on Taylor Kyles. Seems notable that the defenders are focused on the aspect while ignoring the homophobia and the anti-Semitism. Basically, I mean, the whole speech that Butker gave was reeking of racism, bigotry, and then there's nothing else. And then for them to say that we embrace all kinds of diverse opinions and stuff like that, I don't know if NFL is kind of losing its reality, with the globalization, aligning themselves with streaming services, charging more money, and then this. I don't know where exactly is NFL is positioning themselves, or where they're going with this camp.
Well, as we said, all Andy Reid had to say was that he has a right to express his opinion, but doesn't mean I agree with it, and we support our female fans. That's all he had to say. But instead he just said, he has a right to say we support him. He's in the locker room with us.
He said something about, I have opinions that I don't like about you guys.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
yeah.
blah.
Look, I get the coach trying to protect his players. That's something that you try to keep it in the locker room, but also at the same time, I would like to think that some of the players, and now I know that not all the players are going to, and some of the players are going to agree. Some of the players will likely agree with Harrison Butker because that's the way they are, and again, that's fine. They can agree with it. But I would like to think that there will be some in there who would say, "Hey, look, man, what you say affects all of us, and when you say something, I get questioned about it, and somehow they'll find a way to take care of it." I like to think that would happen. Someone's going to speak up and just tell them, "Hey, next time you if you're going to make a speech like that, you may want to temper it down a little bit because you are a public figure and you got to realize what you say affects all of us." I don't know if someone's going to do that, but I'd like to think.
The last time somebody did that, it was Colin Kaepernick, and he got blackballed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I like to think that someone would do that, but again, I don't know, Stephen. It is what it is. We are. We've talked about this before. We call out bad behavior because that's what the AA team does. But at the same time, we know that this is a divided country. People are going to believe, and people are going to talk about cancel culture. This is not about cancel culture. This is about attacking people's lifestyles. It's attacking. It's also making some anti-Semitic comments that he did, especially in that speech. But you know what? When it comes down to it, he can kick, and he's gonna as long as you can play. And if we've seen before, Stephen, you can be of a you can be of disreputable repute, and then you can still have a job in the NFL. So we've seen it before. We've seen people, have say worse things and do worse behavior, and they still have a job. So Harrison Butker isn't going to go anywhere. So for those people who are going to think that he's going to get fired, it's not going to happen. And as long as he can kick and kick the ball straight and kick it through the uprights, he still has a job with the Kansas City Chiefs. And until he stops doing that, I would think that he has a job somewhere in the NFL, even if the Chiefs decide to release him.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a similar. I kind of remember, Peyton Manning and Mike Vanderjagt type of situation where Mike
Liquored up
Vanderjagt said something about Peyton Manning, and then Manning shot him back and completely referring to Vanderjagt as a liquored up kicker. I don't think we're there yet. It's I think it happened about 20 years ago or so.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're there yet. But I don't think Butker, will ever challenge Patrick Mahomes for anything. And will this lead to a fractured locker room or more headaches? The Chiefs have had a lot of trouble, and I forgot to mention, their rookie Xavier Worthy car got stolen and in a apartment complex that he lives, and Wanye Morris and one other player that I forgot who it was busted for marijuana charges on the side of Kansas, which marijuana unfortunately is still not legal where I live. So there's a massive headache for Kansas City to deal with, and unfortunately some of it is self-inflicted ones. So they have a lot of issues to deal with, and will this lead to the Chiefs self-destructing or not? We'll find out this upcoming season. All right, let's do a quick wrap up of some of the stuff that caught our attention this past week. We're going to start with the ESPN's NBA coverage.
Embarrassing.
Embarrassing. Yeah, and this is about the Knicks versus Pacers Game 7 last Sunday. A lot of people rightfully criticized the ESPN's coverage as if it was just a Knicks love fest orchestrated by Stephen A. Smith from the time he walked in as if he was the one playing game today to basically the halftime show, and then just the whole coverage. And then Tim Legler apparently came in to, I forgot what podcast it was, Kim, but he admitted that he was told by ESPN executives or high upper people that Pacers just aren't, quote, sexy and stuff like that, which kind of reminded me, I think maybe it was Indiana coach Rick Carlisle, or maybe OKC head coach Mark Danold, about complaining about lack of calls because of the small markets and stuff like that. I know either one of them said that. So ESPN giving so much biased coverage of the New York Knicks and letting the biggest Knicks cheerleader to use the platform to hype up the Knicks in a game that was there was no contest. Certainly revealed themselves, and this is probably going to push more fans further and further away from away from the the ESPN and also the the NBA coverage or whatever that they're putting it out there moving forward, Cam.
Yeah, Steven, it's fans have always accused ESPN of East Coast bias, and it's when you have something like that, when you have Stephen A. Smith coming in and your whole show, the NBA Countdown, is devoted to the Knicks, and you don't say anything about the Indiana Pacers, and then halftime, Bob Myers was asked about the Indiana Pacers, and then he made it about the Knicks again. That's where fans really get angry. And, even Dan Patrick said he didn't care who won the game, but then he started rooting for the Indiana Pacers because he said their coverage was embarrassing. And I have to agree. I mean, I was at work, but I got texts. Believe it or not, I got people texting me and saying, can we just call this, instead of NBA Countdown, Stephen A. Smith Countdown? And as you mentioned, and there were videos of this, there were players being shown. Of course, you always show players during the pregame coming off the bus, going into the arena. They showed Stephen A. Smith, arriving at the arena as if he was one of the players. Who cares? We don't care. And Stephen A. Smith then making a speech, trying to fire up the Knicks. I mean, what is that? I mean, who enables this? I mean, this is ridiculous. It's one of the things why people just hate watching ESPN, especially and especially I hate to bring this around to the NBA negotiations again. Yeah, there you see the introductions of the players walking into the arena, and then you go there, Halliburton coming in from the bus, going in, walking at Madison Square Garden, and then the next shot, and it's coming up in just a second. And now, any second, it's going to be Stephen A. Smith. There he is. What effect does he have on the game? He has none. And ESPN's trying to show him as if he has an effect on the game. This is why people prefer TNT's coverage over the NBA, because it's a little bit more fair-handed. And while Charles Barkley is a personality, he has a sense of humor about it. And unfortunately, if the reports are true, ESPN is going to continue on this, and while TNT is out after next season, but people don't like the forced storylines of ESPN, especially in the NBA, and this is why people criticize the coverage, Stephen. When you have things like this, that's where the East Coast bias comes in, why they always show the Yankees and Red Sox all the time in baseball, why they're always showing more East Coast teams than West Coast teams, and then you have this with the New York Knicks and totally ignoring the Indiana Pacers. And then you have, and when the Indiana Pacers started to take over Game 7, it seemed like a shock to ESPN's announcing crew of Mike Breen, Doris Burke, and JJ Redick. A lot of fans say, hey, they were very happy to see the Indiana Pacers win. So it's not right. And it was really embarrassing. And I'm sure the NBA is going to say something to ESPN about that. You just can't have one man as Stephen A. Smith dominate a pregame show like that and make it all about him rather than even talk. They made no talk about the Indiana Pacers at all, Stephen. Then that was just alarming. If you have a pregame show, at least if you're going to do that, give 5 minutes to the Indiana Pacers, and you can do the rest about the New York Knicks. But you got to talk about the other team in there. It was as if there was only one team playing in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's embarrassing. ESPN continues to lose credibility over such a biased East Coast, coverage. Was it apparent? And if you think that it wasn't apparent before, I think you saw it full on deck Sunday, as if ESPN can't cater enough to Stephen A's massive ego. All right, next one. I'm going to move on. We haven't talked in a while, but Shohei Ohtani's translator was back in the news because obviously he's facing indictment on his gambling charges, which he, in his court date he pled not guilty, which is not surprising. But latest twist involving this one is that according to Front Office Sports and also other outlets, Ohtani's close friend and former teammate with the Angels, David Fletcher, is now under investigation. Fletcher, who is now with the Braves organization, I think last time we saw him, he was actually pitching. He was trying to make it to becoming a pitcher. Reportedly placed bets with the same bookmaker as Mizuhara. So this latest twist in this saga will not go away. And unfortunately, because who Mizuhara is or was, and then also the fact that it is Ohtani's former teammate with the Angels, David Fletcher, who was an infielder, by the way. Ohtani's name will likely be propped up again, and I know there have been a lot of people. We talked about this when this first broke out, and that there were a lot of people who were actually shitting on Ohtani, that he would actually gamble on the game or actually place bets on baseball through Mizuhara, and that nonsense that we found out. The feds made it clear that this was all on Mizuhara, and then Ohtani had certainly nothing to do with it. And thank God that after a slow start, and then Ohtani has been lights out, as we know. So far this year. It's unfortunate that this story was brought up again. And, when you have a major league player, even though he's not with the team, maybe he's with another organization in their minor league systems. this is a story that will likely brought up again, and there will be idiots out there who actually believes again that because it was a former teammate that Otani had directly used him to make bets through Mizuhara and the bookie and all that kind of nonsense, which could also hurt or Otani's momentum, and then also attack Otani, not just on a professional level but also on the personal level.
Right, and we're getting more information about this. More information is coming to light about this story. As we mentioned, when the feds come after you, the feds usually have a case. It's very difficult to win a case against the feds, especially when they have the evidence against you, Stephen. And and as we mentioned, it's a good thing that Otani was cleared on this, because the speculation up until the news came to light from the feds, especially the xenophobic coverage and comments we saw about Otani, saying, "Oh yeah, it was his. He definitely did this. There's no doubt about this." But you don't have that information, so I'm glad that the feds came out and exonerated him very quickly. Otherwise, this would have been running rampant throughout the season on him, and that's unfortunate. But here he is now, as you mentioned. Another player has been implicated by the feds, and it's going to come down really quickly, especially when the feds have evidence against you. And as you mentioned, the translator, it's just amazing how widespread this was and what he was doing with Otani's money. And the fact is that he was going all over the place, Stephen. I have a feeling is that there's going to be more things coming out. Will it implicate other baseball players? I hope not. But this is a guy who
I have a feeling it will, unfortunately.
Yeah. And it's a guy. He's a guy who has very connected circles in the baseball community, because he was employed by a team, by the Angels, and like you said, and he's apparently a well-liked guy within those circles. So, probably maybe the fact is, and I'm not going to speculate, but maybe we saw him run money for other players. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next up, over the weekend, a boxing match took place in Saudi Arabia as a part of a sports washing in that country. Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, who is Fury is a current heavyweight champion. Usyk is right now a cruiserweight champion, which is about one or two weight class down, and certainly had in a match that was I wouldn't say a mismatch, but certainly given the current state of the heavyweight division, where he has beaten Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, and then there's really not much else available in the scene. It certainly made sense to see guy like Usyk and Fury go at it. Fury, of course, was the heavy favorite, but if you throughout the match, it was a lot of back and forth, and Usyk really took control of the match late in the game, and I have to say it was a very, very inspiring performance by both men in this match. Given the current status, what the country of Ukraine is dealing with, and it was an amazing performance that he really put it out there, and I was very inspired by what I saw. Too bad that Fury said after the game, that after the match, that Usyk got the decision because the country is in a war. With,
you better take that down. That's copyrighted, Steven. We got to take that down. That we'll get a strike on YouTube. Be careful about that. So,
all right. So basically, you said something about the country is at war and that it got favorable, decision of sorts.
mhm.
It's interesting. Ukraine has a strong boxing history. Obviously, we all know the history of heavyweights with Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko. As you can see here, this is Vladimir congratulating a current champion, a former champion, obviously embracing current heavyweight champion. So Vitaly and Vladimir certainly owned the heavyweight division for a long time.
Right.
And then the Tyson Fury came in and took the reins for the last couple of years. Very, very interesting. I was pretty pissed that Fury would say something like that to upset a lot of people. Very, very poor loser. But hopefully, I'm guessing there will be a rematch. There's a rematch clause. I think somebody like Usyk would certainly honor it. And then on the same night, I believe there was another fight that was on ESPN. Dennis Berinchek defeated Mario Navarrete in the vacant WBO. Emmanuel Navarrete to win the lightweight title on the same night. And there was a video of Usyk staying up late to watch that. It was a great night overall for Ukraine boxing. In the midst of chaos and tension in the Ukraine and Russia, I think that Usyk and Berinchek winning hopefully brought some joy to those people who are suffering there.
Yeah, I didn't see the bout. I didn't really see any of it, Steven. So
I didn't see it either, but I saw the moment that was considered a moment, like the moment it changed, where I believe it was a 8th round or 9th round where Usyk knocked him around, got saved by the ropes, but eventually after multiple times where it could have been ruled a knockout, I think he was finally completely leaning into the ropes, and they had the head referee there had no choice but to call it a knockdown. So I think that was the moment where things changed, and I was kind of inspired by that moment, and congratulations to Usyk for a job well done going up against the heavy favorites and taller, bigger opponent, and then just really pull on an incredible performance there.
Yeah, I didn't see any of the fight, Steven. I only saw Fury's comments, so I really can't comment about any of what you just said. So I'll just defer to you. Okay,
no problem. And you posted something up here, Ken, about Saudi PIF investment in the ATP and the tennis tours. Again, this is somewhat of a follow-up or in connected to the boxing that took place in Saudi Arabia over the weekend, and then the Saudis continuous investments into sporting events in attempt to do whitewashing, which we've spoken in great length on our show before, Ken.
Yeah, Martina Navratilova and Chris Everett has spoken out against this, especially for the WTA tour, accepting money from the PIF. They didn't like the fact they protested the year-ending WTA finals were going to be held in Saudi Arabia, so they were quickly moved to the United States because of it. But now, because of this investment, the WTA tour has agreed that it will have the WTA finals in Riyadh for the next 3 years. And while it provides some stability for the WTA finals, which unfortunately has been held 3 different locations, it will give the WTA finals a permanent home, at least for the next 3 years. I hate to see that because Riyadh, Saudi Arabia is known for its oppression of women and its its treatment of women. So I find it very ironic the fact that they want the WTA tour to go there, and also forcing women to be under headdress and not allowing. And it took them a long time for women to be allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia as well. The PIF also investing in the ATP tour, also wanting several conditions, including wanting a huge year start a year beginning tournament in Saudi Arabia, although that conflicts with the Australian Open because the Australian Open likes to begin the tennis calendar every year in January with its own major event, the 2-week event, a major Grand Slam. But the PIF now, the PIF wants a major tournament in Saudi Arabia, a 2-week tournament. So we'll see how that is handled. But again, we talk about sports washing by a country which has a very, very bad reputation in human rights. We see what it's done to the golf with its splitting up of the PGA and the Live Tour, and also there's talk about Live trying to make a major foothold in Texas, which has been the PGA's foothold, a major foothold as well. So we'll have to keep an eye on this, Stephen. The PIF isn't going away, unfortunately, and the National Football League hasn't ruled out PIF investment as well if it's if down the road too. So it's a story we're going to keep an eye on. It's a story we can't go much into it now because we're going to be ending the show soon. But I just wanted to put that out there that this is a major development in sports again. The PIF not only doing in golf, now opening up in tennis, and we'll see. They have their own the Saudi Soccer League, which has signed major players as well. We will see if they also start a basketball league, which is what they are rumored as well, and down the line also trying to get other major events. So this is something to keep an eye on. And MBS, who is the leader of the Saudi Arabia, continues to try and use sports to sports wash and try to wash away the bad reputation of Saudi Arabia right now, Stephen. And it's a story we'll keep an eye on.
Right. This kind of coincides with the story NFL entertaining the entry of private equity.
Yes.
And we all know that the private equity, in light of Red Lobster going bankrupt and what they did to, stuff that led to bankruptcy. And we all know the history of private equity sucking up, everything and then just basically ruining lives. Absolutely. There could be some sort of a front man, that's acting as a, taking money from the, Saudi, China, or even Russia, the countries that, a lot of people in this country likes to despise and attack its own people. And yet, a lot of these owners, all the decrepit white people who give money to the GOP mostly, and then also will not have any seconds of a doubt taking money from these people either in ways to make more money at the expense of players' health, and then now also compromising themselves. So this is something that bears watching. These private equities, we didn't have time to go into it, but even Florida State and some colleges are apparently also entertaining thoughts of accepting money, and this is something that we'll delve into another time and hopefully bring in somebody who's more of an expert in this area. But it's happening, and that you have no idea who these people are, to be honest. And if you do a deeper dive, you can bet that the Saudis are going to want a piece of Americana, which probably will not sit well with the people in this country because of the 9/11 sentiments and stuff like that. Or, maybe that the NFL would have to make sure that the Saudis perhaps will not start their own football league, where if you saw, a Saudi league in soccer, people like Christian Ronaldo, who is still playing but well past his prime, and others are getting a gigantic amount of salaries.
Right.
Thanks to obviously oil money, but it will be only a matter of time if Saudis would open their own football league just to stick it to the NFL in America. So we'll see what happens, Ken. But it's another fine show for us. As you can see there, our YouTube channel is live streaming as well. You can see this also on our X channel as well. Our X channels that are linked there too as well. Make sure to follow us on the YouTube channel as well as follow us on X as well. We look forward to having you on again next week, hopefully same time. But we'll definitely keep you posted on our X. Now it's officially x.com now instead of Twitter, although I don't think a lot of people are probably aren't going to use, they're going to still call it Twitter or, enter twitter.com on the web link. But make sure to follow us, and we'll keep you updated on our next show in time. Tomorrow night, I'll be talking with the Alexis Jade to talk about the Chicago Bears and the new schedule and so forth. So we look forward to having you on tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. We'll have you more information on that link as well. On behalf of Ken Fang, I am Stephen Negishi. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Have a good night.